Bill Simmons, you know him, the ringer, CEO and founder, cultural critic, the Bill Simmons podcast at Bill. He's a very busy guy, so I don't get him very often, but he's got a cool-looking, usually I see you and Russillo doing your thing. So I'm starting this week. The staff is all caught up. They're singing the praises of your match.
You're not going to watch it.
Yes,
Come
I
on.
am. No, I am. I will. I do. I travel a lot. I'll watch every episode. First one's Kuzi, then Russell. Then it's the Celtics I grew up with, which was 6'8" Dave Cowens at center and Havlicek. That's what I grew up with. Then we're going to the one that's really fascinating, Bird. So I'm going to ask you this question to start. When you come up with an idea like this, the day the light goes on, the epiphany, to the series starts, because Hollywood, everything's molasses, everything's slow motion. How long is the process from light bulb to show is airing?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to follow a Najee Harris segment. I was really hoping that would happen in mid-March. I know the world's talking about Najee right now, so it's great to be here. It started probably 2020, and it just takes so long to finish deals, and it takes so long to find a director and find the behind-the-scenes team that this was probably a 4-year process. Plus, we're making 9 episodes, 9 hours of content, and looking back, it feels like a million years ago when we started, and it was really hard to do because you're telling, it's one of the most famous franchises in any sport. It intersects with the city of Boston in all these ways and the NBA in America. So it was a pretty ambitious thing, but I feel good about what we pulled off.
Well, you've also, because of the tragedy to Len Bias, there was also another run that could have been and wasn't. You guys could have had your next Russell. That's right. So you could have had a pre-Larry Bird, and you didn't. So that's something I've always thought about Boston is, the Lakers, with Kobe and Gasol, you could have had another one there. So this is a franchise that could have more. They've had some bad fate. When you as a Celtic fan look at all the teams, is there one that to you is closest to your heart?
I mean, the Celtics, because we had season tickets. My dad got a ticket in the 73-74 season. He used to carry me in, and then we eventually got 2 in the late 70s. So I went to the most Celtic games. So I obviously that's that personally, just being there, being in the building for some of the best and the worst stuff, I think matters the most. I think what's interesting about the team as a whole is, they mattered the most. They were the most successful franchise in the world for the first 40 years, really until Bias died. And then it just dipped. And there was this slow process where you're hanging on to the old memories. You're hoping it's going to work out. And then eventually you just become another NBA team. The Garden goes down in 95. They just have this absolute drought where they're not relevant really for 9 solid years until the 2002 team. So it's this once powerful institution that completely falls apart and then eventually resurrects, starting with the KG trade. So that part made it really compelling as a story too. It's 9 episodes, but once we get into the 90s and the 2000s, it gets pretty dark. A lot of stuff has happened to this team. So that made it great from a storytelling standpoint.
It's a different world. It used to be that all the NBA guys were fighting for a smaller pie. And so Michael Jordan really did hate the Pistons. And everybody, there was real animosity. Now, Bird and Magic didn't like each other initially, but over the course of time, they had so much respect for each other. But it's interesting. It's a more collaborative basketball world. You guys all play together. And I've said this about Jayson Tatum. He is a product of what basketball is today. It's not high school rivalries and college rivalries. It's AAU basketball. You may not even go to college. By the time you get into the NBA, you all help each other with charities, your friends. And so we can criticize Tatum, but he is a product of this generational basketball players. LeBron doesn't have any enemies. He's never gotten into a fight. They all get paid. So I guess my point is, you can't really criticize Tatum when he doesn't have, quote, the instinct. That's what basketball players are today. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, it's funny. If you watch the Celtics season this year, they've definitely butted heads with a few teams, including the Lakers. I think there was more crap talk during that last Lakers-Celtic game than probably the last 5 years of it. Listen, Colin, Celtics Nation is very aware of your Tatum takes. We've heard. Everybody get super defensive about him because the guy's having an incredible season. First of all, he won the title last year.
Yeah.
This year, he's the third best guy in the league. He plays all 5 positions. Yesterday against Portland, he was playing point center with 4 shooters. He can guard everybody. He's the best rebounder on the team. I think as a decision maker and just as an all-around player, this is the best he's ever looked by far. And he's the biggest reason they have a chance to win the title again. I think last year you could definitely make the case it was 1A and 1B with him and Jaylen Brown. And they had a great, in a good way, a seesaw thing where they would lift each other up if one guy was down. This year it's been Tatum's season. He's the best guy in the team. And other than SGA and Jokic, he's been the most day-to-day impactful guy in the league. And he's really durable, which I think, both of us have criticized NBA players for you play 65 games and you call it a season and you take like little sabbaticals or you leave or you nurse injuries. Tatum's out there all the time. And I think what he has turned into over the last couple of years has exceeded any expectation I ever could have had. You're basically hoping he could be a poor man's Durant when they drafted him. And now you're talking about somebody that has a chance to be one of the 4 or 5 best Celtics ever.
Yeah, and I also think, unlike Durant, he's not a wanderer. Like, I could see him playing for this team forever. And then, I mean, that's not his personality.
No question.
I've said this before. All basketball players enter every night with an empty canvas. They're all artists. More than any other sport, basketball players are artists. They spill paint. They have bad nights. Steph Curry has horrible shooting nights. The difference is LeBron is more Bono or Jay-Z, where he's a businessman, and KD is more Pearl Jam. I'm going to sue Ticketmaster. Tatum's more LeBron. He's happy. He's content. He's community. It's about business and basketball. So I could see him staying forever, and I think that's good for the Celtics. That's just kind of my take. He's more LeBron than Durant personality-wise.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things our documentary is about. That for whatever reason, this franchise, the history of the guys who played for it and the things that have happened and the banners and all the ups and downs and Red Auerbach and people who are dead, Russell, Red Auerbach, Tommy Heinsohn, everybody's basically gone except Cousy and Satch Sanders. But I think the newer guys, when they come in, they really feel that there's something different about the history, the way the generations interact. I think in Tatum's case, some of that circumstance, like he ended up on the best possible team for him with a city that absolutely loves him. I don't know if the Durant stuff is totally fair because to me, Durant is just a series. And I know I'm always a Durant defender.
Oh, I love him. I love him as a player.
But I think it's a series of sliding doors with him. You could argue if they never leave Seattle and that team is still there with Westbrook and maybe Harden and Ibaka and an owner actually cared about the franchise and kept them in Seattle, which is, one of the most loaded from a money standpoint cities we have. Maybe he's still there. Yeah. Maybe he never leaves. Maybe he becomes what Tatum's going to be in Boston. So I think you need luck with this stuff. LeBron didn't have luck in Cleveland because they were always trying to catch up with him in the 2000s. They were always trying to make the team as good as possible, as fast as possible, and sign free agents and make these big trades and just constantly try to chase a title before they were really ready. And eventually he realized, I can't win with this current setup, and he jumps to Miami. And whether you agree with that or not, that was the thinking. Yeah. I think with Tatum, he's in a great situation all the way through his 20s, and that's why you stay.
Yeah, no, it's like quarterbacks. Mahomes would win, but he wouldn't win as much without Reed and Vetch and the Hunt
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's where you land, and at least in the NFL, it feels like for quarterbacks about 80% of it. I want to ask you about this. So years ago, I coined this. I was very proud of myself. I said, I like analytics. I'm not anti-analytics, but I like manalytics. Is that in the end, I need a stop and a bucket. I want a man. I want an alpha. I don't care about – I think a lot of the analytics in the NBA are great for the regular season, but postseason basketball is circumstantial. It's possession basketball. Make a stop. Where are you on analytics? Again, I'm for them, but playoff basketball, it's an alpha sport. That's why I don't trust OKC for another year. It's why I didn't trust Cleveland last year, and I do more this year. The young guys are now more about men. Where are you on basketball analytics?
I just think everybody has them now. We hit a point with baseball when there was an edge. Like, that's what Moneyball's about, right? And especially the Moneyball movie, which is Jonah Hill's character is a fictional person of 9 different things. And eventually everyone had the analytics. And then in baseball, then it moved to defense. And then it moved to some of the health stuff. And it just kept trying to evolve. I think in basketball, they're all looking at the same stuff. It's better to shoot threes than twos. You want interchangeable athletes. I think teams like OKC and Boston have really set the trend for, if we just have long guys everywhere who can shoot and they're interchangeable, and that's what we're doing for 4 quarters, that's the biggest advantage you can have. I went to OKC Clippers last night. They were missing Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, and it didn't matter. They still won.
Yeah.
And they had defense. They could switch on every possession. On offense, even though SGA, he couldn't buy a basket the whole night, but they had just guys sending picks for him constantly. He's creating stuff for everybody, and they have a real identity, and I think the Celtics do too. The Celtics, if you play minutes for the Celtics, you have to be able to shoot. That's it.
Yep.
So I think from an analytics standpoint, the analytics are more about identity than player to player. It's like, what are you trying to be? I think the Lakers are struggling with that right now. I went to the Bulls game Saturday night. By the way, Colin, you live in LA. You realize you could come to some of these basketball games.
Yeah, if I was invited by a season ticket holder.
We don't really see you in the arena studying the action. But I went to that Bulls-Laker game, and the Bulls were just like, we're running this whole time.
Yep.
We're going to run down your throats, and you're going to die by the third quarter, which the Lakers did. And you see that, and that's a team that their identity, because that Luka trade, they're trying to patch it together on the fly. I want identities in the playoffs, and to me, that's more important than analytics. I think Cleveland is as close to having one as possible, but you saw last week, Kawhi killed him, Kevin Durant killed him. What's Tatum going to do against them when you see these big scoring forwards are able to get whatever they want against them? So, do you buy that, though? I'm more of an identity guy than an analytics guy.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities in sports. What are you? Baseball's all about pitching. I got better pitching, I win the series. I mean, even Shohei Ohtani can have a bad – it's all it's about. But in basketball and football, what are you? Because I think in crisis, it's just like as a parent or as a business. We've got crisis. Everybody in the building has to know, what do we lean on? Where do we go? It's easy when you're playing bad teams. When the Cavs are playing the Celtics, I think the Celtics win because I think they have a greater sense of identity. Even though the Cavs can be more efficient, I think there are times you can argue that they've had better games against Boston. I think Boston has a better sense of what they are in a tie game at 99 with 2:30 left, and that's why they'll win. I got to ask you this.
Well wait. Our friend Rousseau and I always talk about this. The difference between regular season basketball and playoff basketball. Because I think a regular season team can have a different kind of success than a playoff team.
That's right.
If you go into the playoffs and you're only doing one thing, and that can work if you only see a team once. But when you see them for 2 weeks, I think this could be a real problem for the Knicks. The Knicks are so Jalen Brunson-centric that we're going to get to the playoffs, and you just see that over and over again for 2 weeks. You can get used to it. The Celtics with Luka in the finals last year, same thing. They got used to how Dallas is playing, and they as the series went along, it was great for them. So I think the ability to kind of change personas, which I think OKC has, I think Boston has, I think Cleveland potentially has. That's the number one thing you want in the playoffs.
As a Celtic guy, and the show, by the way, is called Celtic City, Episode 4, Great Hope, airs tonight. And that's the arrival of Larry Bird, which is, again, that's in my wheelhouse. I remember I watched the Michigan State when it was Magic and Greg Kelser, and it was the Sycamores from Indiana. So that's right in my wheelhouse as a guy that just turned 60. So is there something about Larry? Give me just a taste, because we all know the Larry Bird story, and give me a little aside or a little thought on Larry Bird that don't give away too much, but that maybe you didn't even know, and then you kind of found out.
You always see this stuff about when the guys were at their apexes, when they're at their best, especially in documentaries. I've certainly been involved in a few of them. I think a really interesting piece of it is when the guy is banged up and past their prime and holding on, and the thing that still makes them great or made them great once upon a time, they can still kind of go back and grab it every once in a while. And that's like, there's basically 3 straight Bird era episodes coming. And that last episode is about how do you stay great when your body's starting to break down? What does that mean? When do you know when it's time to walk away? And I think that's the part that I think people don't remember now with Bird. Magic all of a sudden was gone, right? He had the HIV diagnosis, and that was it. He retired. We never saw him hit that stage. Jordan left at the absolute peak and then came back and went through it with the Wizards for those last 2 years. And if you remember, those were really interesting Wizard seasons for him, right? His knees were banged up. He was doing it on a lot of memory and was still awesome. So I think with Bird, and sometimes it goes terrible, and especially you see it in football. You've seen it with Aaron Rodgers right now the last couple of years, right? Just awful. The ending couldn't be worse. I think with the Bird one, he's got this 30-pound back brace, and he's still able to kick butt against the best guys in the league during one of the hardest eras we've ever had for basketball. So I think that part, I think people are going to be surprised how much they forgot about that section.
Okay, it's called Celtics City. It's supposed to be great. I will watch it. I watch everything. By the way, I just saw.
I don't believe you.
No, I absolutely watch it. I'll bet you anything. I'm going to start watching it tonight. I will watch it.
All right.
Okay.
I would appreciate that.
By the way,
we know you're not going to basketball games in LA, so you have more time.
I'm a Bulls season ticket holder. I've seen Tatum play live 4 times. I am a
nice. The Bulls are looking good.
Well, if they get Cooper Flag, they'll be really good.
A decade of play-in appearances for the Bulls. That's it. They live in the play-in. That's all they want. No luxury tax, play-in, and they're happy.
Okay, so I'm going to one football take. One. I think we both have
Najee Harris?
No. I'm going to save the big good stuff for later. One Aaron Rodgers take, and I think you and I are kind of agree on this, is that there's 2 ways you can be a quarterback, a great quarterback. You can be Brady, which is great and low maintenance, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Or you can be great and there is maintenance. Cam, Big Ben, Aaron. That group, it never ends well. My take is Aaron will probably go Steelers, but deep down – he paused because he wanted to go to the Vikings, and I believe he wants Brock Purdy to demand $60 million. I think he wants to go play for the Niners because he knows the Steelers don't know offense. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. That's my conspiracy, is deep down he wants to go to the Bay with Shanahan. What is your take on this circus that's become Aaron over the last couple of years? His fall to the leagues, or where do you land on it?
Well, he was washed up last year as a quarterback. I mean, that's a crucial piece of this. He was terrible. He was good if he had protection. When he didn't have protection, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I think he likes when people are talking about him. I could see him sticking around and being kind of in the back pocket for if a situation goes wrong with a quarterback, or if somebody gets hurt, and maybe he won't officially retire, and he'll wait and see what happens. I honestly think Brady, even after Brady retired from the Bucs, I think there was a world for the next 2 years where he would have come back if something had happened to a QB on one of the best teams. I think it's really hard for these guys to let go. But, I mean, my big picture take on this, and it ties in with LeBron and Brady, I think those guys and how successful they have been, LeBron in his late 30s into his 40s, and then Brady all the way to 45, I think it's just completely ruined how we should be seeing the end of people's careers. We're expecting these people when they're 37, 38, 39 to just still be good. And guess what? It's not going to happen. Like LeBron and Brady are generational anomalies. And what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to hit your late 30s as a quarterback, and you're supposed to be washed up. And that's just how it's supposed to go. And in basketball, same thing. You're supposed to be Paul George, 34, 35. Guess what? Athletically, you're going to start slipping year after year after year, because that's how it goes. And LeBron and Brady, because they're such maniacs and they spend 365 days a year getting their bodies ready, and every decision they make was about still continuing to dominate, I don't think it's replicable. And I think it's going to cause more bad decisions, like the Cousins contract, Rodgers, you name it. Some of the basketball stuff that's coming. I just think those guys screwed it up for everybody else, as weird as that sounds.
Oh, one more take. 4 years in a row, I have picked a bad team to be good the next year. Washington last year in Denver, Rams the previous year, Minnesota. My pick is New England. I said between the money, the Gerard Mayo to Vrabel you're talking about a different level of coaching. I think Drake May is Herbert. I think they look alike. I think their size, they move. Give me a real – okay, forget. We know you think they'll be better. But I have to ask you.
No, I'm always realistic with my teams.
Okay, so I think they're a 9-win team.
And I know
Yeah.
you and I have both done a good job over the years of identifying possible people. Like I went 27-5 in my over-unders before the season last year. Like I'll never top that again. So I almost feel like I'm going to do badly this year because I did too well last year. But my picks were actually good, whereas I saw your Blazing 5 record. It was pretty bad.
Terrible.
My condolences. I'm sorry.
It was awful.
I just think, obviously your priorities were out of whack and you just didn't care. We all look forward to you caring more this year and trying to reestablish your dominance. But listen, the Patriots recipe is exactly the same as Washington last year. The Washington thing did not make sense. They were in Philly's division. They were in a really loaded NFC. They had all this turnover. How are they going to do this? But then you look at it, it's like terrible coaching staff. All of a sudden they had a good coaching staff. They all of a sudden had a good quarterback. The year before they didn't. They spent a bunch of money on free agents. They did well in the draft, and they played an easy schedule. So we know what the recipe is. We look at it every year. I think the Pats, if they can nail the draft and they can figure out left tackle and at least one playmaker, I think – when you consider how awful the coaching staff was last year, it was one of the worst coach teams I've ever had in any Boston sport. You couldn't even believe it week to week how bad it was. So you have Drake, they get a couple blue chippers, easy schedule, they add around, and then you throw in Mike Vrabel, who I think everybody thinks is a top 6 or 7 coach. It's reasonable to go from 4 wins to 10. Like we see it every year. We're always like, oh, who saw this coming? We always see it coming. This happens every year, and it's always about a schedule and a coach and a QB.
All right. Well, he doesn't return my text, so I get him about once every 7 years. Very busy guy.
That's baloney.
You're very busy. Don't get a lot of time with Bill.
That's baloney. I'm always down for a hang.
You could invite me to any Laker. Like I haven't been to Intuit yet, but I'm always available if you want to invite me to something.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Intuit's the best basketball arena ever built.
Oh boy.
And it's relatively close to where you live, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll go one of these times and see. I could go to any game I want. I'll pass.
Couldn't you acknowledge I've at least moved into WWE, respecting it now? That was a big bone of contention between us. It's no longer I've been to 2 WrestleMania.
Has the community accepted you, though?
No.
You said some mean things way back when. There was a booger eaters. You had that going.
Yeah.
You looked down on people. You made people feel dumb about it. Now you're back.
I don't know if I'm back. I'm just, I'm more willing to accept that it is just what it is. It's theater. It's fun. Just lean into it and have fun. It wasn't.
Well, I was trying to tell you forever.
All right.
Look at this. 2 guys who used to work for the worldwide leader still doing well. Funny how that happens, huh? Everyone says, oh, you can't leave there. Oh, no, can't leave the worldwide leader. Whole life's going to fall apart. Guess what? We're fine.
We've done okay. Okay, it's called Celtic City, episode 4 tonight, Great Hope, period. This is the Larry Bird stuff. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, you'll remember this stuff. This will be the episode. Is this the one you're proudest of? Is this? I mean, they're all good, obviously. The staff's obviously great. I went and looked up the people working on. Is this one of these you're really the hit episode?
I honestly, I'm proud of all of them. I think this gets fun because this is the first stretch of episodes where everybody we're interviewing is actually still alive.
That helps. Yeah.
So, because we're going way, way back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And sadly, a lot of those people are now gone. So it was nice to get, some people who are still around talking about things that they can actually remember. So, I'm really proud of it. And the thing about tonight is Boston versus Philly was the best Boston rivalry of my childhood. And beating the Sixers mattered as much as anything except the Yankees and Canadians, I would say.
Yeah. I remember.
So, I had never really seen that captured in the right way. So we tried to do it in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah, great. The Sixer teams with Steve Mix and Caldwell Jones and Andrew Toney and Mo Cheeks and Dr. J, George McGinnis. People, I always say this. There may not have been a dynasty in the 70s and early 80s until the Celtics-Lakers arrived. 70s NBA basketball was fantastic. It was great.
It was great.
Rick Barry was
super weird.
Yeah, Rick Barry was pre-Bird Bird. Rick Barry was pre-Bird Bird. Grumpy, great shooter forward who didn't get along with some people, but it was a different time. But he was pre-Bird Bird. 6'8" guy that could shoot.
Right. And there was a lot of mystique for people like us back then because none of the games were ever on.
That's right. That's right.
So you followed the league through the basketball handbooks and basketball cards and
Yep.
Sports Illustrated and newspapers, and every once in a while there would be a game on. But like going to games in Boston in the 70s, David Thompson maybe came once, twice a year. You know, George Gervin, these guys, if you didn't go the one time they were in town, you never saw them again.
Yep.
And now everything's so available. Now you can follow the NBA and you don't even need to go to games or watch games. You can follow it on social media, and, you know, on Twitter. So I'm nostalgic for that era too, because you really had to care and you really had to follow what was going on.
I was the only kid in the neighborhood that collected NBA cards and not baseball cards. So, you know, I go back to Elmore Smith, Lakers center number 3. I go way back. Bill Simmons, CEO of The Ringer and the founder as well. Celtic City, episode 4 tonight, Great Hope, period. It's the Larry Bird issue. It airs tonight on Max. New episode focuses on the arrival of Larry Bird. That is much watch. As always, you know, I appreciate when you stop by. You're a busy guy. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too, and I don't come in because you do the desk that's higher than the guest chair, and I don't appreciate the power play by you, so I'd rather do it on Zoom. But great to see you.